Bro, listen. I think there can be improvements. I think Lindelof is a good player, solid player. Um, is he going to enable you to win the league? I don't know. Um, is Maguire going to enable you to win the league? That's the question as well.
Rio Ferdinand knows a thing or two about defending for Manchester United. Rolls-Royce defender, as he was known as, with that man next to him, the Man Vidic. Man United, we've been spoiled by centre-backs over the years, haven't we? Right now, we're in a bit of a... I say we're in a rut. We've got Raphael Varane there. It's crazy that we're having these conversations, but you've seen the videos that I've done in the last couple of weeks about Harry Maguire. I said we needed to have a conversation with him, and I did a separate video where I went a step further, saying I was done with him as captain of Manchester United. But in this video, in Vibe with 5, on Rio Ferdinand's channel, he was asked by Joel and Stephen Housen about Harry Maguire, about Victor Lindelof, about the defenders, about what the problems are. And what I want to do in this video is sort of react to what Rio had to say. So I will leave the link to the full interview over on Vibe 5 in the description. But I just wanted to pick out these bits and sort of go into it in a little bit more depth, to start taking a look at a couple of stats, sort of build on the points that Rio raises, because I'll be honest, I think he's completely right. Before I do begin, make sure you do consider subscribing to United People's TV. If you join the video by the end of it, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell as well. You get a ping every time I go live with a video. But look, let's take a further listen at what else Rio has to say on this topic, because as I said, Maguire is the talking point at United right now. As much as Cristiano Ronaldo is as well, it's our captain. And he's not playing like one. But it's not just about his captaincy, it's also about the style of play. And that's what Rio goes into it and speaks about here. Take a listen.
Because the thing about someone like Ralph and all the top teams now, when they play now, they play on the front foot and are aggressive and want to win the ball high. So therefore, you need defenders that can defend on the halfway line, 1v1, 2v2, or 3 against 2 if you need that security.
Yeah, I agree.
If you can play 2v2 or 1v1 on the halfway line, that enables you to have more bodies in the opponent's half of the pitch.
But Rio's completely spot on here. In terms of how football's changed, football has become a lot faster, a lot more athletic, a lot more aggressive, and there's a real onus on being proactive in the modern game. And by that, I mean this. So look, if we were to take a look, these are 3 games I'm going to be looking at here. Liverpool against Leeds, Liverpool against Everton. They're going to hate that. Everton against Man City, and United against Southampton, because I think it's very interesting to draw comparisons to the heat maps of the teams. What Rio is saying there is that he wants, or he thinks that defenders need in the modern game to be able to play on the halfway line. In a 1v1 situation, if a ball gets knocked over the top, defender's not worried about it. That centre-back's got it covered in the bag. And I think you can see that's where the huge difference lies between between Liverpool, between City, and between United. Of course, this is a small sample, but if I was to make the sample bigger, the same patterns would emerge. This is the heat map here from Liverpool and their game against Leeds, a 6-0 game. And we take a look at Matip's heat map. Look at where he's receiving the ball. From the edge of his own box to the halfway line. We go to Van Dijk. Very similar. He's not camped in his own half. I couldn't actually find the average positions, but I'm pretty sure that if I was to get the average positions, it would show them going pretty high up the pitch as well. And if we were to look here at the Everton game against City, look at Diaz. Look at that. Quite a lot of possession in Everton's half as well. And Laporte as well. Huge. Look how significant those 2 heat maps are here when we compare it to Manchester United's with Raphael Varane. Okay, you can see what he's trying to do. But then Harry Maguire. Where is he? I mean, it's a bit everywhere. And the lack of touches as well. 67 there for Maguire. I know, again, that's come down to domination and possession, but 124 there for Laporte, 112 for Diaz. What about Liverpool here? 105 for Van Dijk, and 98 there for Matip. When it comes to Harry Maguire, and it comes to Manchester United's lack of control, or lack of ability to really have that control, I personally think Rio Ferdinand is absolutely spot on. And I wanted to take a look at the tactics board as well, to go into this in a bit more detail. Because effectively what Rio's saying there is that maybe like Varane can, when United were on an aggressive front foot, Maguire could happily sit there sort of on the edge of the halfway line and not be too worried about that ball going over behind him because he's confident enough in his own ability to recover that space if it happens. But as Rio goes on to explain here, it's just not something I think you're ever really going to get with Harry Maguire.
Hence why teams do that, to win the ball early and be closer to the opposition goal to score goals. Liverpool do it tremendously well. City do it really, really well as well.
Yeah, they do.
Bayern do it. 3 of the best teams on the planet. Everyone's going that way of playing football. Ralph Rangnick's style of football is like that.
And again, Rio's spot on there when he's saying that. Is that Rangnick's style of play, we know that it hasn't really worked out exactly how he wants to. The 4-2-2, the gegenpressing system, Manchester United, it didn't work straight away. He tried, then he tried a 4-4-2, then he tried a 4-2-3-1, and we've gone to the 4-3-3, and we've sort of stuck with it, and it works right now. But Manchester United, as much as we're having control, are we really being massively proactive and going on the front foot to the halfway line? I don't think we are just yet. And I do think Maguire's part of that.
Can Maguire do that? Can you do that with Maguire? That's my problem. That's my issue. And that's because his pace doesn't allow for that. He's always going to be looking over his shoulder. And if I'm a centre forward, if I'm one of the quick centre forwards or quick wide players, quick attackers, I would be hanging around where Harry Maguire is. For all the good traits that he has in his game, that is a big weakness in his game. And that is a fundamental of all of the top teams, is to be able to play 1v1 on the halfway line. So I think it's for Maguire, long term, unless he can find that extra yard of pace, is going to be maybe difficult for him.
And this is basically what Rio's getting towards. Is effectively saying, is there really a chance of Harry Maguire being part of a title-winning team at Manchester United? And whether or not we can build around him. And it all comes down to the tactics. Because if you're looking at how the modern day game goes, as I said, it's extremely aggressive. It's extremely physically impressive. Teams really try to play with a massively high line, 2 centre-backs sitting there, the majority of the team tucked into the opposition half, winning the ball back in these sorts of zones, As soon as it goes back, the ball's just kind of swept around, and you effectively make the pitch half the size by doing that. You're always going to leave yourself with a bit of threat to be got in behind, but that's where your centre-backs, I mean, you could say your full-backs as well. That's where your defence, you back your defence to cover you in these situations. And the fact of the matter is, United can't do that when we've got Maguire in our team. Now, I sort of always maintained that Harry Maguire, I felt that Harry Maguire would look like a better centre-back if he was playing for Man City instead of Manchester United. And I still kind of stand by that. But I also do think that Rio Ferdinand, in this little interview on Vibe with Five, for me, is absolutely spot on. I have reservations as to whether or not Manchester United could ever play with that style of football with utter confidence. I suppose in the same way as Manchester United weren't able to play in the 4-2-2 with complete and utter confidence because it didn't really suit Ronaldo's style of play. When it comes to being a proactive team these days, as I said, playing, look at that. Majority of the players in the opposition half, squeezing the space, forcing the mistakes, winning the ball back early when the team's not in a defensive shape and a defensive setup. That's when you're going to get the advantages. That's when you're going to get the goals. That's when you're going to get chances. What Ralph Rangnick has tried to do. But I do think there's a fundamental weakness of Harry Maguire's game there. It's a natural part of his game. He's just slow. He's not agile. He's got the turning circle of a truck. It gets a bit awkward sometimes watching Harry Maguire in that sense. When you're asking him to play that quick one-touch football, moving, he prefers to take a bit of time on the ball, to look up, to feel confident in himself. He looked really good with England at Euro 2020. Looked fantastic, in fact. And at points last season, he was very good for Manchester United. But it's just that as the games have gone on this year, isn't it? Game after game, Maguire's weaknesses seem to be getting exposed to the point now where you're looking at Manchester United's starting centre-back partnership, and you're probably saying that Lindelof and Varane is the best partnership that Manchester United have, right? And that's leaving out your £80 million captain. The price tag, it's irrelevant for me. It's a bit of a moot point. the reason I raised it there is because it always gets labelled towards him. He didn't choose the price, but what comes with the expectation of being an £80 million signing is you're going to be like Virgil van Dijk, or you're going to be like Ruben Diaz, who was like 45 million, wasn't he? But instead, Harry Maguire, he's somebody who sits deep in his own half, plays it sideways, doesn't really break the lines enough, doesn't have the pace to recover enough, so will naturally sit a bit deeper. And by sitting deeper, I mean, if you look at Manchester United's deeper lines, that was a huge problem. Who was it? Was it Everton where we conceded that set piece in like the 89th minute because our defensive line was so deep, and we were playing like on the edge of our own box, if I remember correctly. Varane does have strengths, all right? Varane's not... sorry, not Varane. Jeez. Maguire does have strengths. But I personally think that Rio Ferdinand in this interview... I mean, Rio doesn't want to say it. He doesn't want to throw anyone under the bus. But when you're Rio Ferdinand and you've played alongside Nemanja Matic, you are better placed than anybody to give a fair and honest assessment of Harry Maguire's strengths as an individual and Harry Maguire's weaknesses as an individual. And I personally completely and utterly agree with Rio Ferdinand that because of Maguire's fundamental lack of pace, he's not particularly suited to a modern day top level team who plays aggressively on the proactive front foot. Okay? It just doesn't suit him. It doesn't suit him, and I'm not sure it ever will suit him. So therefore, is it a fundamental weakness of Manchester United that won't ever go away until he's not inside that team? Does it mean that we just have to accept that we have to sit deeper, and then if they sit deeper, then Matic will have to drop back, or McTominay, and everybody has to drop back 10 yards? But then by doing that, you're sort of negating that problem and creating a different one by dragging your whole team back 10 yards. And therefore, the press is going to be a lot harder because all of a sudden you've got more space to cover with lesser players. It's a really interesting debate. As I said, it's a very interesting conversation over on the Vibe with 5 channel. I will, as I said, leave the link in the description below. Go and listen to the full hour interview there. Plenty of good talking points. And I always like to listen to what Rio Ferdinand has to say. As I said, he was the Rolls Royce. He was, I mean, he's arguably the best centre-back we've had in the Premier League era. And he knew a thing or two about playing on that high line. And as I said, that's why I go listen to that interview. He speaks about what he used to do when he was in those one-on-one situations. And he just completely and utterly backed himself to do it. So much so that he sometimes gave the attackers the advantage because he knew he had the pace to cover it. But what's your take on this Maguire situation? It's continuing to develop. I've said my piece on Maguire a couple of weeks ago now. And this is a sort of follow-up conversation. Because is that fundamental weakness of Maguire's pace? Does that mean that Manchester United, quite simply put, can never play that sort of attacking, aggressive style on the front foot in the opposition half when you've got Maguire in the team? Or is that a bit harsh from Rio? You let me know what you think about that in the comments below. As I said before at the start of the video, please would you consider subscribing if you've enjoyed the conversation and the debate and the points. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell as well. You get a ping every time I go live with a video. But you let me know what you think about the whole Maguire situation that continues to unfold at Manchester United and also Rio Ferdinand's comments on him. Take it easy.